All right, so 2.1, committee and staff reports. Added item 7.5, the pilot of Raptor, possible replacement of current school check-in system. Consent agenda item 8.12, proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 salary schedules for administrative, managerial, professional, technical, and temporary personnel was moved to Superintendent's Human Resources recommendations, item 9.15. Item 8.14, ITB 1804, build a press box building at 2 high schools was moved to discussion agenda, item 10.1 at the request of Mr. Destin. Item 8.21, tag on bid purchase over $25,000, William Scotsman for 6 portable classrooms, correction made to a scrivener's error in the budgeted amount. Added item 8.40, payroll calendars for 2018-2019. Superintendent's Human Resources recommendations, added item 9.15, proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 salary schedules for administrative, managerial, professional, technical, and temporary personnel. Discussion agenda, added item 10.1, moved from consent agenda item 8.14, ITB 18-04, build a press box building at 2 high schools. And so with that, board members, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
It's a tie.
Vice Chair.
Second by Mr. Destin. All in favor, please vote. The vote's 5-0. All right, now just a reminder, board members, we are scheduled for a public hearing at 6:15, and please help me remember the same. If we move now to recognitions, item 3.1, recognition of the 2017 Rain Barrels on Parade participants, presented by Mr. Alan Baggett, Executive Vice President of the Building Industry Association. Please come forward, Mr. Baggett.
Yes, sir. Hi.
Hello, sir.
Should I address you or the crowd?
Both.
Both. Wonderful. Do you all know what a rain barrel is? It is a garbage can with a hole in the top and a faucet on the front. And we were fortunate enough to inherit 40 of them last year. And so what we did is we decided that we wanted to incorporate it into our parade of homes. And we wanted to make them pretty. And so through the efforts of 22 schools throughout Okaloosa and Walton County, we had them sand and primed, delivered, picked up, taken to houses in the parade of homes, and with the help of Waterstone Mortgage and with the Daily News, we had an online auction, and we auctioned off the rain barrels. And they had different pricing. People bidded on them, and that's how it worked. So, so as a result of that, when I worked with the schools, we said that we would give back to the schools. So that's what I'm here tonight, is to present. It's not a great big check, but there's 22 schools, so each of them got a little bit of money. So if you don't mind, and I'm pretty sure that through all of our efforts, we missed a couple schools tonight. But I promise you, I'm going to make it up immediately. Kim and I just talked. I know that we have at the fairgrounds, we've got the art show, right? So we'll make it up. So if I don't call your name, I'm going to get you, but you can still come up and be part of a big group photogram or something.
That's an IOU.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. So, Sally Reagan.
Ms. Reagan's here.
Stay up here. Kim Moran. Carmen Patterson. I want to tell you that we had Channel 8 come out. We had the newspaper. We had put a video online. 12,000 people watched that video in 2 days. Wow. So we really brought quite a bit of attention to the rain barrels. Alex Pottinger. Yes, sir.
Mr. Day.
Stay on here anyway, yes, sir. Please do. The Bobby Luna, Lewis. The neat thing too is that you don't realize it, but in my world with construction, rain barrels are an important part of construction. And a few weeks ago, Emily Day, Niceville High School. She here or no? Anybody from Niceville? Okay, we'll give it to the teacher that we missed. That'll be part of that IOU. Sarah Harris. Nope. Kenwood. And Maya with the Northwest Florida Ballet. I'll bring that to her. That'll be a reason to go downtown. But we appreciate everything you did. I apparently have 50 more rain barrels that have been donated. I told my people that we needed a village. I personally sanded, and we're loading up 2 at a time in the cars and running them all the way to Paxton. But I can't thank you enough for helping out. It brought a lot of attention to not only the building industry, but to the schools and the art departments and the things that you need. So thank you so much.
Yeah, in front. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Beck.
Anybody?
Because I went on their website.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Baggett. We appreciate it very much. All right, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank Mr. Baggett. Also serves on our Career Technical Education Advisory Committee, so thank you for your service on that important advisory committee.
So you're going to hear some real exciting about what we're going to do with that.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Baggett. Thank you, Ms. Thorpe. All right, so item 4, we're showing no visitors tonight, and item 5, Ms. Evans, we don't have any blue cards, do we? So we have no public comment. On item 6, administrative personnel appointments, there are none. On item 7, committee and staff reports. Of course, we received these on Thursday during the workshop. 7.1 in-county travel, 7.2 out-of-county travel, 7.3 an update on the lease agreement with the City of Fort Walton Beach, 7.4 Okaloosa County District School Board audited statements, and then 7.5 we received information on pilot of the Raptor program for replacement of the current check-in system, possible replacement.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Since we're trying to hold off till 6:15, I thought I would just add a couple items. I noticed today regarding the pilot of the Raptor check-in system that another school district, Pasco County in Florida, recently decided to use that program to meet their needs for visitors and volunteers at their schools. And then I know we discussed, or I mentioned some few important items for members of the public to focus on the financial statement audit that appears boring at first opening, but has really good information in it. And sad to report that I did post on a Facebook feed an article, I believe from the Orlando Sentinel, that discussed dual enrollment fees and how, as part of the big omnibus bill that our legislature passed in regards to education, how private schools who have students who will dual enroll will not have to pay for those dual enrolled students, where public schools who have students who are dual enrolled will have to pay. And supposedly that was in an effort to get more homeschooled and private schooled students to be able to dual enroll, but it is discerning to me that there's two sets of standards especially when it comes to taxpayer funds, because in essence, the colleges that offer those dual enrollment courses will have to pay for those homeschool and private school students who will have that benefit.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that information, Mrs. Thrush. All right, board members, we still have got a few minutes here, so I propose that we go ahead and try to move through consent agenda and those kinds of things. So in section 8, consent agenda, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Please raise your hand if you're in favor. Vote is 5-0. All right, let's scroll all the way down. As you'll remember, that's a long one. All right. And now we come to section 9, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. Item 9.1, employees on administrative leave, is presented for information purposes only. Item 9.2, deferred retirement option program, is also presented for information purposes only. 9.3, employee hearing, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? All in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.4, personnel recommendations, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.5, employee transfers, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Votes 5-0. 9.6, employment separations, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent. Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thrush. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Votes 5-0. Employee suspension, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.8, employee suspension, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
I think Mr. Destin there. Mr. Destin makes the second. Any discussion? All in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.9, employee suspension, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction and Curriculum, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. The vote is 5-0. 9.10, employee suspension, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thrush. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. The vote is 5-0. All right, board members, let's scroll on down now to the public hearing. Christy, please mark our spot there. I think that was 9.10. All right. Public hearing, 16.1. So we need to go ahead and recess the regular meeting. We'll call into session the public hearing. Public hearing for science textbook adoption, presented by Ms. Ann Flanagan, reading specialist, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Is there anyone here to speak tonight regarding the science textbook adoption?
Move it.
Seeing no one here to speak, motion by Mr. Walker.
And Mr. Chairman, we need to note for the record that the vote tonight is contingent upon the budget allowance for purchase. If you'd include that in your
Just
motion.
for the public to know, so sometimes we go through the process of making a textbook adoptions, but then we don't have enough money to actually purchase the textbooks. So a very frustrating issue that happens on an annual basis because we don't know until normally the summertime or close to the end of the school year prior to the next school year what funds we'll have.
Whatever's necessary to put in the motion, we don't put it in the motion.
Yes, sir.
Because we've been doing it for 50 years. So anyway, yes, I'll make the motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Walker to approve the
I'll
adoption of the science textbooks.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Mr. Bryant. Is there any further discussion? And Ms. Thrush, I'll just follow up and say, very often schools have to take money from their general operating budget to supplement the textbook purchase because the state doesn't provide enough funding to buy textbooks. I know that from experience. All right, so seeing no further discussion then, all in favor, please vote. The vote is 5-0. All right, so we'll close the public hearing and we'll go back up. Was that 10.3, Christy? 9.11. 9.11. I was in a hurry, huh? All right, we'll call the school board meeting back into session. All right, 9.11, reinstatement, reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination, presented by Mr. Chambers, Assistant Superintendent. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thrush. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.12, leave without pay, presented by Mr. Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent. Looking for a motion. Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.13, addendum to the master contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa County Education Association, presented by Mr. Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. 9.14, master contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa Education staff professionals effective July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020. Presented by Mr. Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote. Votes 5-0. 9.15, proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 salary schedules for administrative, managerial, professional, technical, and temporary personnel, presented by Mrs. Scallon, Chief Financial Officer, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, please vote. Vote is 5-0. All right, moving on to item 10, discussion agenda. 10.1, ITB 18-04, build a press box building at 2 high schools, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. It's on discussion agenda, so commence.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for having this one put on for discussion. I had a discussion with Mr. McGinnis this morning
All right.
about Title IX and the things we're obliged to do.
Okay.
And I now understand that there is a necessity for parity among our facilities. In other words, our facilities are, for guys have to be equal with our facilities as girls.
Yes, sir.
That's a part of Title IX.
Right.
And these projects actually were discussed earlier, and they go toward that parity. However, another good and what I think is more important part of Title IX is opportunity. And so when I try to examine these projects under opportunity and ask myself how many more girls will be able to participate in sports in our county because we built a press box, that one falls a little flat. So I am going to probably not be able to support this because I think we need to have some discussion about what we can do to reach more opportunity for the girls under Title IX. Now, after this is voted on, I'm going to ask Mr. Koutsaratis a couple of questions about moving in that direction and seeing if we can't address opportunity as much as we address parity in the facilities. You know, to my way of thinking, parity in facilities can be addressed without spending any money at all by sharing the facilities. Now, that may well cause problems in scheduling, and I've not looked at it, nor I think probably have the staffs, but I would like to see our money spent on more opportunity rather than facilities. So that's the gist of my non-support for this issue.
Okay. All right, Mr. Destin, and appreciate your comments. Board members, is there any other discussion or comment regarding this particular item? Mr. Rush?
I have a few things.
Okay. Just a few.
Right, just a few. You know, as Mr. Destin brought up on Thursday and today, this item has been discussed before. It's part of our 5-year capital work plan. And I guess the rub for me and Mr. Bryant eloquently mentioned in his comments at the end of the workshop, his frustration, and of course I've been a parent with my frustration with our capital deficiencies as far as funding. And I think these are very difficult decisions, as Mr. Destin has just mentioned. You know, equity in Title IX is something that we need to comply with and we need to ensure, but we also have things such as indoor air quality, the fact that we have old desks, the fact that you know, we have original restroom facilities. So it's very difficult, you know, and we kind of had this discussion with the field issue at Fort Walton Beach High School. I think all of these items are needs. They're not, you know, wants. You know, some of the issue with the press boxes are, you know, again, it's an equity issue, but we in this county have also allowed individual groups and entities and community members to fundraise. And so then you get into an issue of, well, our school had to fundraise to get this item, and this school doesn't have that same demographic capabilities and fundraising possibilities, and so it creates a, you know, a whole nother set of issues. The concern for me is in 1 year, I believe, out of the 8 that I have served on the school board, I finally got a second to have a capital budget workshop. And I feel, you know, as our budget cycle will be coming up this summer, that it's important for us to have a separate budget workshop on our capital expenditures for these issues in particular, because we meet individually, or at least, you know, I believe all of us met individually with Mr. Bolton and Mr. Koutsaratis and went over the items on the capital work plan. But we're asking them to prioritize what they feel needs are for the district, and then we ourselves are giving ourselves $75,000 each of capital funds, and we're kind of well, we are prioritizing our $75,000 based on input from different people who ask for it. I would much rather us either come up with a mechanism to help make the process more objective. Again, you know, I wish we didn't have this problem, and I wish we weren't pitting, you know, well, do you replace a football field or install a press box, or do you buy desks? Do you repair a bathroom? They're all needs. But I think when we have single entry issues at many of our schools, we need to come up with a process or a mechanism that allows us to prioritize all of these needs. Because unfortunately, for the foreseeable future, you know, nobody's coming from Publishers Clearinghouse to the school district or to Rita's office down in finance. And so we're stuck in this issue where we have roughly $1 million to $1.5 million every year, and that's it. And that's sad, and it's deplorable, and I wish more people watching this evening would get extremely angry and passionate about it as I am. But until that happens, we need to come up with a process that doesn't pit us against each other, because I think that's self-defeating. So I would like us to have some kind of process to address these needs. And I'm sorry, it's just disturbing to me that we're at this point. I had a gentleman approach Mr. Bryant and I today about the audio equipment at Niceville High School, and you know, obviously we can't address those needs right away. And I completely understand his frustration and wanting to make their upcoming performance the best it can be. But until we start addressing some of the serious issues facing the school district, we're just kicking the can down the road. And I appreciate Mr. Bryant's discussion on Thursday about pursuing the half-cent sales tax again. And obviously I'm for a 10-cent sales tax for 100 years for the school district. But in reality, even then, we will still have serious capital needs within the school district, as that would potentially be anywhere, you know, close to about $18 million, $19 million annually. And sadly to say, that is a drop in the bucket compared with the number of needs and the high cost of those needs.
And significantly increasing enrollment.
Correct. So I appreciate Mr. Destin's concerns and wanting more equity as far as participation. I do want to remind everybody that we are one of a few school districts in the entire state that still have middle school sports at all of our middle schools. At all of our high schools, we have, at all of our 4 traditional high schools at least, we have every single FHSAA sport that's possible, except for bowling, water polo, and we all know our pool situation in this county, and lacrosse. And I know the lacrosse group has approached us, and we started with the club teams this current year. But again, I don't think you will find another district in the state of Florida that has the breadth of athletic programs that we have at all of their schools and their middle schools. Our own neighboring county, Santa Rosa County, does not have middle school sports. So, you know, I think we've done a tremendous job of encouraging participation, offering as many possible sports to as many possible students. And I do too have heartburn about these items, but I also recognize that I participated in this, in that I approved the capital work plan this past September. So I look forward to more fruitful discussion on this, and I would like us to come up with a process in conjunction with district staff that either we request that they use to prioritize many of our capital needs, instead of it making us pit each other against ourselves, whether it be district staff against the board or competing interests and needs within the district. That's
Very
it.
good. No, that's really good, Mr. Rush. And I see several principals in the room, and when we talk about the 5-year capital outlay plan, I well remember the excitement I would have when I would see my school's project at the top of the list for an upcoming year. And then the disappointment I would have the next year when it got moved on that list because other needs came up. And it's so hard to navigate all of these different kinds of needs when our resources are so meager. I mean, it's just tough, and I appreciate the job the staff does in trying to ameliorate that situation. But it's hard. There's not enough money to do it all, and I understand completely, and I agree with what you're saying. Well, does any other board member wish to discuss this item any further?
I had one little
Yes, sir.
technical question and observation.
Yes, sir.
I looked at the bids on the job, and we had 2 bidders. The lowest bidder was $98,000.
Yes, sir.
The other bidder was, no, $108,000. The other bidder was $198,000, almost twice as much. And you know, do we have any idea why the other bidder was so high?
I don't.
You know, I'm kind of always puzzled by something like that. Mr. McGinnis, explain to me, we build something, and then we are allowed under state law to have our own inspector inspect it. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Can we waive elements of the state building code? In other words, can we waive and use materials that are not allowed under state code? Is that allowed? I'm trying to think of how we could build things cheaper.
We both permit and inspect our own projects on school district property, but he does follow the required building codes and all the safety standards in those inspections, and he also reviews designs. But that, by law, on school district property, that is done by our own, and he's a fully licensed code inspector, but we do our own inspecting.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to interject.
Yep.
Which I'll bring it up a little later tonight under my construction business, but as Mr. Destin pointed out, when you see such a discrepancy in 2 bids, you give you an example of this Richburg project that we've been working on for quite some time now. And I know all of you saw the tremendous article in the newspaper about Bay County, when Bay County started their stadium.
Tommy Oliver.
And you know, they didn't miss it by much, just $7 million.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's the thing that I've been so cautious before I'll come with the final thing finally with the Richburg project. And as Mr. Destin, the thing that I think we need to look out very seriously is when you have those kind of discrepancies, it frightens me because it's not even within the realm of reality. And the point being, that's the reason I can't support this right now. For that main reason is you know, many years ago, before we moved into the way that we now do our major big projects, you know, we used to start out with a project that supposedly was on cost $400,000. The last one we did in-house was on be $400,000. It cost us $1.4 million. And these are the things that we've moved away from, and this is something that frightens me and Mr. Destin very true when you realize there's $100,000 difference in a project that small. I can't support it. I cannot do that because somebody's got to come back and explain to me either we're leaving something. Either the guy that bid the $98,000 is leaving something out, or the other guy's robbing us. So that's the reason that I can't support it. And I think that we've tried to move in a direction of making sure that when we have these projects, because of lack of money, we got to make the dollar go the furthest we can. But we got to make sure we do it correctly, and we do it by code and everything else. And it's like, for instance, we had recent discussion about canopies. Well, you know, we was on go build them out of wood. Well, this board took a position many years ago that we no longer was on do that. Well, you know, we've got to be very, very cognizant of making sure that when we do a project, it's done correctly. But again, it's inconceivable that you're talking $100,000 difference in a press box and concession stands, and therefore I cannot support it for that reason. And that's one of the main reasons I cannot do it, and nobody's been and gave me a reason why that's there.
Dr.
ahead,
White,
sure,
I mean, Mr. Wyndham, since you're here, can you talk about the bid process and the specifications that bidders are given, and why sometimes, you know, bids are so far apart?
Well, this particular bid, I can give you some numbers here. Bid went out to 137 potential bidders, and out of those 137, there were 12 of them that downloaded the document. So you had 12 people that actually pulled the plans and pulled the document. Out of those 12, 2 bid. Now, I can't give you the reason why they didn't bid, but now as far as the bid document, the facilities department puts, you know, they go outside, get the plan documents. Those plan documents are inserted in the bid package. So they're very tight specifications that are included in this project. So they have to go by those plans and by these specifications. Now, why there's a difference, I mean, I can't answer that question, why there's a big difference. I mean, it's like what you mentioned earlier, there could be a little gouging on one side, you know, but then you can look at it the other way. I mean, do we have everything on the low side?
Have we used the contractor that has the low
We
side
have.
before?
The contractor we're trying to award to has been used many times in the district.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Yes, sir.
So for me, Mr. McInnes, having had more than my willing experience with Title IX, is this action compelled in order to keep us compliant with Title IX?
What's being recommended certainly continues our compliance with Title IX. Is it the only issue in the district that needs to be corrected? Probably not.
Right.
But certainly it is well within the bounds of what would be appropriate.
And annually, we submit our Title IX plan to the state. And then this would be something that, should it be approved, would be something that would show further compliance in Title IX efforts.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me mention, Ms. Thrush made a good point. Okaloosa County School District, I'll assure you this, is tried to be in as much or more compliance with Title IX as anywhere you want to go. I'll say in Florida, but probably about anywhere you want to go in the United States. And let me assure you this, whatever you do with Title IX now, folks, don't ever think you're going to be in compliance. It'll always be, and then you have to go into that, and Ms. Rush made an excellent point, is, I mean, when you look at what we've done since Title IX became an issue, this district, to me, I'll put it against anybody that wants to look at us compared to someone else. And unfortunately, absolutely, if they come in and it's like in the past, hey, I know Lamar, I know you remember this. We went through a tremendous problem with Title IX. I mean, and for 2 or 3 years, and I don't even know if we ever really in compliance at this point in time. But one thing about it, as long as you show willingness and effort to do, and I think we've done that, then hey, if they come back and tell us to build 9 concession stands and 9 press boxes, that's what we'll do. But until that time, I mean, I just feel like there's so many more things that's pressing and we have to deal with. And I mean, you know, it's like stopping our leaking roofs, taking care of our ESC kids, et cetera, but by all means, if they come back and tell this board and superintendent that we must get in compliance, we must build press box and concessions, we'll build them. But until then, I can't support where we at with this thing for a couple of reasons, and that's another reason, and I can't support it.
Well, and I
Yes,
mean,
ma'am.
Mr. Walker just made me think of, other Title IX issues
Exactly.
that we have,
They
as
never-
far
they
as
never will.
facilities. I mean, we have, most of our tracks aren't paved, but we have some that are. We have, again, we've allowed self-help projects, that we have a nice tennis center at some locations, and we have tennis locations that are falling apart at other schools because we can't repair them. So, I guess I've probably changed my mind as far as, it's really hard for us to spend more money for additional facilities that we need when we're having an issue maintaining the facilities that we have.
With not enough money.
With not enough money, right?
Okay, and so, as I remember the discussion, this project was placed before us because of a meeting and some discussion about Title IX, some legal discussion about Title IX. Is that accurate, Nick?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. McInnes, is that what I heard at the workshop?
I present Title IX annually
Right.
to the meeting of all of our athletic directors and
Right.
coaches, and
Right.
we review the
Right.
settlements that we're under from Title IX.
Okay.
Because I'm reminding them annually to go back and revisit at their school
Okay.
these various issues and see if there are things they need to correct or
Okay.
take care of.
Okay.
And so, yes, sir, that's done annually.
Okay, and so from that discussion then, gave rise to this particular project?
That's
Is
my
this my understanding? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Are
Mr.
there other
Kutratis,
projects that
yeah.
popped up too that we haven't
Right.
yet heard about? Or are
Because-
these the only two, I guess is what I'm saying?
Well, these are the two that we're aware of now, but as Mr. McGinnis said, we review this every year and look for inconsistencies and try to fix them.
I know. I know you
I mean, I know
Go
we've
ahead.
mentioned concession stands, but technically,
These are press boxes.
these are press boxes, right? And I mean, they will have concession stands in them, but as far as Title IX need, concession stand isn't a Title IX need. The press box is the issue. Is that correct?
I'll have to defer to Mr. McGinnis
Well-
because I believe that the concession stand was an issue in the lawsuit that we were under several years ago.
These recommendations are to build press boxes. Now,
It's
an
shared use.
ancillary
Right.
piece of that you get out of it is that there is space to have a concession stand. Both of those items can be considered under Title IX, and in fact, when we went through this matter years ago, we bought a fleet, if you will, of concession trailers to address that issue in Title IX, and they were moved all over the district. But of course, those are old and are falling apart. But yes, concession.
And that's what we're
stands-
currently using, is a trailer
That's right.
at both those locations.
Yes.
And as far as the press box,
There is none.
There's nothing.
Well, now I have a question about that. So, and I know the principal of Crestview and the principal of Fort Walton Beach are here. But in the case of baseball, boys baseball at Fort Walton Beach High School, is there a press box?
Yes.
Is there a press box for girls softball?
No.
And in the case of Crestview High School, is there a press box for boys baseball?
Yes.
And is there a press box for girls softball?
No.
Okay.
Just for clarification, these press boxes were requested by the principals from the school, that had come from the school up, or
No, came from me.
that's,
I was in that meeting, and I was made aware. We were at a discussion. There were a lot of coaches, and so coaches came to me and said, "Hey, we don't have a press box." And so it didn't come from the principals, but it was from a discussion with coaches, and then I took it from there, and here we are.
Well, when we was in the Title IX before, you remember, for instance, and I was one board member that wanted to go to court, and I had differences with our esteemed attorney, because you remember when Albertsons was feeding the football team before the ball games.
That's right.
And also somebody was giving T-shirts to someone else. Well, you know, at some point in time, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll never get in complete compliance on Title IX unless, you know, we could also look at it another way. Is let's just not have press boxes on the baseball team, the men's baseball team. I mean, you know, at some point in time, okay, if they come back, because we tried to be just as fair as we possibly can with all of our sports and all of our programs. But now, okay, what's going to be the worst if they come and say, okay, y'all not in compliance and y'all got to have a press box and concession stands that we're now discussing? Fine, then we go do it. But until that time, let me assure you that if we all got out tomorrow and started going through this district, if you think we're not going to find a lot of non-compliance on Title IX, you're going to be surprised. So, I mean, and it'd be great if we had the money, but when you start talking about having to spend this kind of money for this, when we have so many other needs, I just would have to be told that this is what I'm going to have to do. And I don't think that's going to happen. And as Ms. Thrush made an excellent point, let me assure you of one thing. This school district, I'll assure you, should get a blue ribbon for what we've done for Title IX. And I fully believe that. And naturally, hey, whatever we go is fine and good, and I move on. But it's like, I mean, how ridiculous can it be when, if we want to feed a boys' team a meal, and yet it's the most terrible thing in the world? Well, it's like because a particular Publix wanted to give T-shirts to a boys' team and didn't think about giving them a girls' team. Well, okay, we had to discontinue all that. But, I mean, it's like now, I mean, folks, we all know what kind of shape we're in. I was in a building the other day that we had a 5-gallon water bucket hanging out of the ceiling to catch water. And I mean, and unfortunately, fine, if Title IX comes and tells us we have to do certain things, we'll do them. But until that time, I don't see how we are going to have to start doing it, because I think if we do this, trust me, tomorrow, somebody's going to come with something else.
Dr. White, if I
Yes,
can
sir.
interject something also
Yes,
with the press box and the concession stand, one of the issues that we're dealing with these old portable
Yes, sir.
concession stands is the health department.
That's right.
Having being up standard. Now these will, if we build these press boxes and concession stands, it's going to actually put us in compliance with health department regulations, having the proper equipment in there.
That's correct. They were the health department was consulted in the planning stages, and so they told us what we needed to have to be compliant with them.
Let me clarify that since that's the business I'm in. We've been written up our concession portable, or the violation of the health codes now?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. This is a real simple question. If you believe $108,000 for press boxes is going to improve the opportunities for girls to participate in sports under Title IX, then you know how to vote.
And thanks, Nick. I don't think we have any more questions.
All right.
But if we do,
Thanks.
we'll call you back.
All right.
Mr. McInnes, I guess my concern is that as this item has been brought forward before the legislative body here,
Yes, sir.
as a recommendation to correct what appears to be a Title IX deficiency, I think that, in my opinion, presents some incumbents upon the legislative body. Are you following my train of thought?
Yes, sir.
Let's vote.
So is there any further discussion? Ms. Thrush?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, Dr. White. And I'm the only female on the board, and I have 3 daughters in school, so I'm a proponent of Title IX. But as I stated earlier, we have a lot of issues in the district that we're not in compliance with. We have old water fountains. We have single entrance issues to our schools. As Mr. Walker just stated, I can't name a building that I haven't seen a bucket collecting water in. We haven't been in our administrative office, and we have employees literally working in hallways because of issues that we have. And I no doubt know that these two schools have a need. So it's a difficult decision.
Mr. Bryant, anything else?
I'll just say for my school, which is Crestview High School, if any of you have been to the girls softball field over the last 5 to 10 years, you can see that it's out of the way. It's lost a lot of attention. Just over the last couple of years, it's finally being addressed where they got it up to at least to where it's respectful, in my opinion, where, you know, we're not embarrassed to hold games there. So I will say that, you know, looking at it from Crestview High School, I think this is a good thing for the school, for the girls that play in that particular sport. It gives them a little bit more clout with the boys, because if you see the boys field over there, they have a beautiful press box with a concession stand in it. So I will definitely, you know, be in favor of adding this to both Crestview and Fort Walton Beach High School.
Let's vote.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion then for this particular item, item 10.1.
I'll move on that motion.
Motion by Mr. Bryant. Pass the gavel to Vice Chairman Destin. Lamar White seconds Mr. Bryant's motion.
I will pass the gavel back.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Vote is 2. All opposed? The vote is 3. Motion fails. All right. We talked that one around pretty good.
Yes, we did.
Let's go ahead now and let's move to item 11, construction excuse me.
I had one other item I discussed with Mr. Koutsaratis.
Oh, some questions, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We discussed ways to try to move forward with providing more opportunity, and I would like to ask Mr. Koutsaratis to look into that with the superintendent's approval.
I told you we'd call you back. Come on up. So in particular, you are looking for, Mr. Destin, what was it?
Recommendations on how we can improve opportunity under Title IX. And I think we talked about one of them that has been perhaps looked at as lacrosse, which has girls teams and boys teams, and any other opportunity that Mr. Koutsaratis can come up with so that we can increase opportunity for the girls to participate in sports.
The cost would be for the supplements. If the board is willing to approve those, then
Well, you're asking for information.
I'm asking for him to
Right.
I'll
look
bring
at the
that.
issue and
I'll
bring
give
us
it to
back a
you.
recommendation.
Some kind of itemized.
With
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
With Ms. Jackson's approval, of course.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Koutsaratis.
Thank you.
All right. Is that
That covers it.
all right? Thank you, Mr. Destin. Okay, let's go on now to Section 11, Construction Program Owners, Representative of Business. Mr. Walker.
Yes, we had a meeting this morning, and I think we're about to finalize our Richburg project, and we'll be coming back to you. Steve and Nick and Rita and I think we've run into some tremendous problems. We understand that the school is 70 years old. At one time, we planned to actually demolish it, and now we all know where we are. But we've run in, by scoping the sewers and the roof and everything in the world that we run into. But
Right.
we think we finally got it worked out, and we're going to try to hopefully get it back to you board members and the superintendent to be able to get approval, and then be able to have, we're going to shoot for 2 classrooms for the fall that we desperately need up there for those ESE kids. And with the latest plan we have worked out, we actually have worked out, working with Ms. Scallion, that we think we'll be able to have 3 classrooms that we'll be doing while we're there, which will be, will help conserve the money that will be spent when we do go in there. And it's, well, I think most of y'all realize that it's been a nightmare, really and truly. We've had to change directions twice because of finding things that we never expected to find. But this is a clear example of one thing I know you board members and the superintendent wants, is when we go into these large projects, we don't want to throw a number out there that's not going to be in reality. And then also, when we do it, as Ms. Gagan preaches to me all the time, if you do it right. And that's where we'll be, and we hopefully within, probably not the next board meeting, but the following, we'll be able to bring it back to you board members, and hopefully we'll get your approval of what we worked out. Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Walker.
And, I mean,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
to add to Mr. Walker's comments, I know we've all been up to Richburg. I think the enrollment there has doubled in my tenure on the school board, and those teachers have been extremely patient and persevere every day in teaching life skills. They're dealing with a regular oven, so you can cook, you know, on one rack at a time. Our teachers have been very creative and innovative in creating an in-classroom changing facility. Again, when we talk about equity, there's lots of equity needs in our school district.
Well, and you know, give you an example, when we've been meeting with the principal and the teachers up here, you know, for them to get some things done, they've even volunteered to say, well, we won't make you put a bathroom in the classroom, which Ms. Gagan, when you even mention something like she scolds me very quickly and say, hey, if you're gonna do it, and we all know that you need a restroom in that type of classroom and change, and you know, if you don't do it, yes, it adds to the price, but it's foolish to even think about building a new classroom for those kind of kids and not have a bathroom in the facility. And yes, it does add to the cost, but again, when you're there, I mean, you know, and even the principal and teachers are so desperate to get help that they willing to forego that, but you know, we won't even consider bringing that to you because it's not the thing that should be done.
I want to take the
Yes, sir.
opportunity to thank the staff that's been involved in this. This has been a really hard slog. I know Nick and the whole group up there have really worked hard to try to get something done, and it's not been easy.
All right, very good. Thank you both. All right, so that's the status report, so that's information. Let's move on to item 12, Information Technology Seat Management Contract. CICI Task Order number 2-98, Southside Primary School CCTV Repair, Insurance Reimbursement. Looking for a motion to approve.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Mitchell, I know Mr. Keith isn't here, but I was at Southside today and looking at the camera system. What will be the time frame on this getting completed? Because they have a dire need to get these up and running, so.
From approval tonight,
Yes.
just depends on getting the parts and gear here, so they won't begin any of the process at all until they get the approval tonight. So just an estimate, probably within 2 weeks.
Okay.
It just depends on how long it takes to get the camera gear here.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Key funding source, insurance reimbursement. All right, all in favor, please vote. 5-0. All right, very good. Moving on to Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
2 items, Mr. Chairman. The employee hearing that you've approved under Section 9.3 tonight, I would request that you authorize us to retain Attorney Joe Hammonds to represent the district and superintendent in that matter. I'll be representing the board, and I would ask that you approve his representation under the same letter of agreement terms that you approved at the February 12th meeting when he handled another matter.
So you're looking for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker,
Second.
second by Ms. Thrush. Any discussion? All in favor? Votes 5-0.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, just a Scrivener's error correction on the board doc system. You approved on your agenda an item 8.12, which was a service agreement, and it was service agreement 18-76. The service agreement itself is correct. The board docs carried the wrong project title. It carried the correct numbers, but the wrong title, and we'd ask your permission tonight to correct it. Instead of reflecting the project as Title III Part A ELL, it should be Title 4 21st CCLC. And we just need your permission to make that correction.
You need a motion or?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion, please.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker,
Second.
second by Ms. Thrush. Any discussion? All in favor? Votes 5-0.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Madam Superintendent, you had some out-of-state field trip requests, but you may have some other items too.
Just a couple of things. I want to remind the citizens that this year we received 47 cents per student more than last year. 47 cents will not cover the cost of a ream of paper. That is sad. My friends over in Santa Rosa County, he was jealous because he only got 41 cents per student. And you will hear out of Tallahassee what a huge budget we have, how huge it is. But they need to take in consideration it's huge because of all the new students we have in our district. And trust me, if they put money here, they've taken it from somewhere else within our budget. So it's very depressing. And Rita and I sat there today with Mr. Horton and Mr. Chambers, just trying to figure out how we're going to stretch this money and make it work. But
Well, Superintendent, can I just add
Yes.
to that dismal amount that you've referenced is further complicated by the increasing costs.
yes, when you have a 3% cost of living increase, you think about the cost of fuel,
Insurance.
the cost
all
of
it.
insurance, everything.
Electricity.
We are going in the hole.
Our retirement requirement.
Yes.
To contribute.
Yes. And Rita's been very clear. I mean, she doesn't paint a pretty picture if it isn't one. And so we now are tasked with figuring out how we're going to make this work for another year. The other thing that I did want to mention, that it is budget season. If you see Rita shaking her head, rubbing her head, she and Steve, just pat her on the back because she's the best there is, and she's just trying to keep us afloat. And I appreciate that very much. The other piece is Lindsay here? Lindsay's here. Lindsay, come on up a moment, please. Escambia County has had their hiring fair, and they are on TV, advertising. They're begging for teachers.
Imagine that.
Begging for people. And Lindsay, would you tell us when ours will be?
Yep, so ours is going to be on June 9th at Choctaw High School this year. I think Dr. Hale's here, so he's really excited. He's been working with me to get that going, so we're looking forward to it. So if you guys will help me get the word out, we've got a Facebook group. So if you go to the Okaloosa County page, you can click that you're going to the event. That's the best way to get the word out there. But I'll be advertising it, going to colleges and universities, but June 9th, Choctaw High School. And every school will be there.
And I really, really appreciate that, because
Yes.
if it hadn't been for that last year, year before last rather, I'm not sure where we would have been able to find all the teachers that we need.
And maybe at some juncture, Superintendent, your staff or you can let us have some idea of how many positions we estimate that we might be needing, or you may already know that, Ms. Maxine.
Recommendations are coming up. We'll be talking to the principals about that at this upcoming principals meeting this month. So hopefully towards the beginning of May, we will have that information, or at least a rough idea.
I understand.
And then we are hoping that we'll be able to hire on June 9th so that we can, that's what I'm telling the kids who are at the universities. I'm like, come to the job fair. We're going to be able to hire that day.
There's
so.
a teacher shortage,
Oh.
and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a reason why.
Yes.
Definitely, definitely.
Mr. Horton, thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Ms.
Mr. Horton, we were looking at some numbers today, just trying to see how many we thought we needed in each school and working through all of that. So we've been working hard on that. The last thing I would tell you is I had a great meeting with Sheriff Ashley this week. Mr. McGinnis was there. Mr. Kutsaratis was there. We had a good group. Mr. Chambers was also there. Ms. Scallon was there. These mandates that have been given to us under the school safety, as is, at least they're consistent. Not a lot of money comes with it. It's what we need to do, and not a lot of money to do it. The sheriff has been great in working with us. Rita had a question about something, about some of that money. We were not clear on the statute and what it said, and so Sheriff Ashley was going to meet with the governor while he was here. He took a picture of himself up there showing the governor, hey, what does this mean? Because for those of us who already had SROs in all of our schools, we were going to be penalized because
I thought we'd get a rebate.
No, that's not how it works. The money could only be spent on the hiring of additional SROs over what you had the previous year.
Of course.
So Larry was, the sheriff was very proactive, and he got the governor in the corner, and the governor assured him, he texted me as soon as he met with him, he said, you will not be penalized for that. So hopefully we get to keep that money and maybe work with the sheriff on our contract and some other things. So it was a great meeting, and thanks to Gary Venuti and Mr. Koutsaratis, we are already doing our safety assessment. We did one back in 2013 after Sandy Hook, but we're working through that process again because things have changed. And you know, we are also being required to hire a school safety specialist. And we're working on that at this time. But it was a great meeting. The sheriff and his staff were able to help us with some HR issues that we didn't know. They could find out information for us. He stepped up. He said, we'll take care of that. And I really do appreciate that.
And yes, ma'am, and we've had a very cooperative relationship
Yes,
with
we
the
have.
sheriff. And in my reading of that, all those laws that came out, it largely seemed to place responsibility of this
sheriff.
program. And you said it, on the sheriff. And I think that may have been a surprise in some cases.
He has a
But-
lot of work to do and a very short deadline.
Yep, that's right.
Some things have to be done by July 1.
That's right.
Other things have to be done before school starts. It is going to be fast and furious.
That's right. All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're moving into board members' business. Mr. Walker.
You said enough.
Mr. Destin.
That's good for me tonight too, Chairman.
It's your sentiment too. All right, Mr. Rush.
I always say too much, but before I get called Negative Nancy or Debbie Downer, I just wanted to congratulate Meg's middle school. They placed second in the state in their archery competition. It's the third year in a row that they're going to nationals. So kudos to them. The high school district track and field meet will be this Thursday in Walton County. And best of luck to all of our track and field athletes throughout the district. Both Niceville High School and Fort Walton Beach High School are both having their theater program performances on the same weekend, so you can cram in your fine arts requirements that weekend. I think Niceville's having a matinee, so it allows you to go to both of those. Niceville's doing a production of The Little Mermaid, and Fort Walton Beach High School is performing Shrek. So both great family programs on April 20th and 21st that weekend. I also wanted to quickly congratulate, unless you're going to the robotics. Yep. Okay, I'll leave that. Silver Sands had their alumni day last week, and that's always a wonderful tradition, a relatively new one that they started a few years back, and it's great that former students get to come back and reminisce with some of their friends and their instructors and aides. And also just to remind everybody that enrollment is open all the way from our pre-KD programs to OTC. I was on Lewis Turner this afternoon, and they've got their open enrollment up on their board. So don't forget to enroll in programs age 3 to 22 and beyond, really.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Mr. Bryant.
Yeah, I have a few announcements. First of all, I'd like to congratulate at Crestview High School the Mrs. Kelly Donofrio and Miranda Del Pozo. They were identified by the Florida Department of Education for having the highest impact on student learning in the entire state of Florida. And I know Mr. Day is here, and I know he's proud of those two teachers. Also, another Crestview High School student, Joseph Dunn, he won the 3rd annual University of Southern Mississippi Trombone Solo competition this past weekend. And congratulations to the Davidson Middle School robotics team, who did exceptionally well this past weekend at their first state competition in the first Lego League State Championship in St. Augustine this week. The team was recognized by winning the Strategy and Innovation Award and the Best Decorated Pit Area Award. And I want to thank Mr. Tim Sexton and Ms. Jess Golden for their leadership with these students. Also, a couple of folks that are out in the audience today. I'd like to recognize some teachers from Southside Primary School. We got Sarah Baltimore, Candace Sharon, and Kaylee Goss.
Please stand if you're here.
Please stand. There you go. Thank you for coming tonight. And then also a couple of folks that are here too for Level 2 Principal Preparation Training Program. We have Ms. Laura King, who's at Riverside, and Paige Parker, who's with the district. So.
Very good. Thank you.
And that is all I have, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right, how about staff? Anything else? Okay, association. Patrick, come forward, please.
Mr. Chairman, School Board Superintendent, thank you for the ratification of our contract this evening, and I wanted to thank the negotiation teams. I think this year was a little bit more arduous than most, and thank you for hanging in there with us. And we'll be starting the process again in a couple months. So thank you so much.
Can't wait. Thank you, Mr. Strong. Mr. Butler? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Attorney?
No, sir.
Superintendent, board members? Okay, we're done.
See you later.